The movie begins at Maybrook Elementary School, where a third-grade teacher, Justine Gandy, steps into her classroom only to find the rows of desks empty. Out of 18 children, only one is there, Alex Lilly. Detectives uncover something unsettling. Ring cameras from the missing children's homes reveal a pattern. In the early hours of Wednesday morning, at exactly 2:17 a.m., each child wakes up and runs out of the house in a straight line with arms outstretched, vanishing into the night. As part of the investigation, Alex is questioned, but he insists he knows nothing. Justine, just as shaken, has no explanation either. A month passes, and to prevent further disruption to the students' education, the school decides to reopen. On the eve of reopening, Principal Marcus organizes a counseling session for missing parents and teachers. From this point, the story is told through 6 chapters, each from a different character's perspective. Justine sits in silence as a counselor addresses the audience. Tension erupts when one of the missing children's parents, Archer, interrupts, demanding that the authorities should stop wasting time and arrest the suspect sitting among them, Justine. Determined to prove her innocence, Justine steps onto the stage. She apologizes for what has happened recently and insists she wants answers as much as anyone, but the crowd don't believe her and call her a liar. Marcus attempts to defuse the situation, but the room spirals into chaos and the meeting is cut short. Justine drives to a liquor store to drink away her frustration. Shortly after, she receives a call from an unknown number. A voice warns her to watch her back. Back at home, she locks the door securely and prepares a drink when the doorbell rings. She peeks outside, but no one is there. Moments later, a loud knock rattles the house. Armed with a taser, she steps out and discovers her car vandalized in the driveway. The next morning, Marcus advises Justine to take a few days off and attend therapy. She refuses, insisting that work is the only thing keeping her grounded. But Marcus reminds her that the parents are still emotional and that it would be better if she stays away from the school for a while. Justine asks about Alex, and Marcus assures her he is doing well in Mrs. Belt's class. She pushes to speak with him, but Marcus declines it, warning that Alex has already endured enough and that Justine often crosses professional boundaries. She jokingly asks him to arrest her for consoling a crying child or giving a ride to a student who missed the bus. Marcus reminds her she is a teacher, not a parent, and though he understands her care for the students, he makes it clear she cannot contact Alex. Frustrated, Justine returns to her car. Later, she files a police report for the vandalism and the threatening calls. Across the street, she spots her ex, Paul, who later that night she meets at a bar. Justine admits she's surprised he agreed to see her. Paul smiles and thanks her for reaching out, claiming he had thought of calling to check on her after the news about the student's disappearance, but Justine insists she can handle herself. She then signals the bartender to get Paul a drink, but he orders a Coke instead. Paul gently asks Justine how she's holding up, and she admits that people are calling her a witch and that someone even vandalized her car. Upon hearing this, Paul encourages her to take a deep breath and asks her not to get trapped in her own thoughts. He points out to her that people aren't thinking about her nearly as much as she imagines, which Justine disagrees with. Trying to change the subject, Justine asks if his wife, Donna, knows he is here. Paul admits she doesn't and adds quietly that they're having problems.
Justine smiles and urges him to get a drink, which he does, and they end up at Justine's house and they sleep together. The next morning, she drives Paul to the spot where he left his car. On the way, Justine asks about his work. Paul brushes her question off with a flat, "Whatever, fine," response. His indifference sparks Justine's anger, and she snaps that he isn't taking the missing children case seriously. Paul reminds her that he isn't a detective. When they arrive, he steps out. He tells her it was good to see her and walks away. After school, Justine follows Alex to his house. She rings the bell, then knocks, but no one answers. The windows are also covered with newspapers. Looking for another way, she opens a side gate and slips into the small backyard. There, she peers through a gap in the window, where she sees 2 figures sit on the couch, completely motionless. Alarmed, she calls Marcus to report what she saw. He reacts with frustration, reminding her he explicitly told her to stay away, and ends the call. Later, while buying drinks at the liquor store, Justine is confronted by Donna, who has discovered that Paul cheated on her with Justine. Their argument grows heated until the clerk steps in to break it up. That night, Justine dreams that she is walking through Maybrook Elementary, and in her classroom, every child is asleep at their desks. Alex looks up at her, his eyes wide and unblinking. She jolts awake, heart racing. As she settles back into bed, she notices a woman on the ceiling. Terrified, she screams, but when she looks again, the woman is gone. The next day, Justine approaches Alex. She asks if he's doing well, to which he replies yes. When Justine presses further, Alex suddenly yells, "Don't follow me," and storms off. Justine returns to Alex's house and knocks, but there is no response. She waits outside in her car. Hours pass until she sees Alex's mother quietly slip inside. Night falls and Justine is asleep. Suddenly, the front door bursts open. Alex's mother steps out, scissors in hand, her expression vacant. Without a word, she snips a lock of Justine's hair before retreating back into the house. Now the story shifts to Archer's perspective. Archer's son Matthew went missing, so he is obsessed with finding out what happened to him. He keeps replaying the Ring camera footage from the night Matthew disappeared, studying it for any hidden detail. Archer also runs his own construction company. One day, his employee points out that they painted a door the wrong color, red instead of forest green. Archer admits he ordered it wrong, and he hauls the red paint can into his car and tells the worker to order the correct one. Later, Archer meets with Ed, the police chief, seeking an update on the case. Ed insists the detectives are working tirelessly, but Archer cuts him off, accusing him of protecting the real suspect, Justine. He tells Ed that he looked into her past, and she was arrested for a DUI 2 years ago and dismissed from a previous job for inappropriate behavior. Ed corrects him and says that was with a faculty member. Then Ed adds, "No one forced the children to leave. The footage shows they walked out of their homes on their own." That night, during the counseling session at the school, Archer accuses Justine. After the meeting, he secretly follows Justine home and vandalizes her car. Then he goes back to his house and watches the footage again before falling asleep.
He suddenly wakes up, 2:17 glowing on his alarm clock. He sees Matthew run outside. Archer chases after him in desperation, but somehow finds himself back in front of his own house, watching as Matthew slips inside. In the sky, a glowing, gun-shaped light shines with the numbers 217 etched into it. Archer rushes into his son's room, whispering, "Where are you?" He breaks down in tears, confessing he loves Matthew, though he never said it aloud. Suddenly, a woman with a terrifying smile appears in Matthew's place, and Archer wakes up. Archer spreads a map of Maybrook on his table. Using a ruler, he draws a straight line from his house, mimicking the way Matthew ran that night. He then visits the home of another missing child, Bailey. After introducing himself to Bailey's mother, he asks to see their Ring camera footage, to which she refuses. Archer waits until her husband arrives and makes the same request, and Archer is granted access. Reviewing the video, he confirms the same strange pattern, the children running in a straight line. With Matthew's and Bailey's homes at opposite ends of town, he draws a line between them. It intersects the map at a central point, but the spot reveals nothing familiar. Driving aimlessly to clear his head, Archer spots Justine's car pulling into a gas station and decides to follow. He confronts her and demands answers. Justine snaps back, telling him to leave her alone, that she has nothing to say. Before the confrontation escalates, Marcus runs towards her and tackles her to the ground, pinning her. Archer tries to help, but Marcus shoves him aside. Justine stumbles into the store. The point of view now shifts to Paul. Paul is on the phone with his wife Donna, who is away on a business trip. She tells him she'll be home in 3 days and that they can start trying for a baby soon. Before hanging up, she asks if he's still attending AA meetings. Paul lies, saying he doesn't have time because of too much work, and ends the call. Paul greets Ed, Donna's father, before heading out on patrol. Later, in a narrow alleyway, Paul spots a teenager acting suspiciously. He calls him out, but the boy starts running. Paul chases him, eventually catching and handcuffing him. The boy insists it was his house and that he lost his key, but Paul doesn't buy it. Paul asks for his name, to which the boy replies James. Paul searches James and asks whether he has any sharp objects on him. James says no, but Paul pricks his hand on a used needle hidden in the boy's pocket. Panic floods in at the sight of blood, so he punches James, then scrambles to his car to clean the wound. Only then does he notice the dash cam has been recording the entire encounter. He returns to James, trying to smooth things over. He warns James never to return to this part of town, and tells him that if he sees him anywhere next time, he'll put him in jail. Back at the station, Paul learns that Ed has already heard about his rough handling of James. Ed reassures him that as long as James doesn't file a complaint, the incriminating footage will remain untouched. Not long after, Paul receives a message from his ex, Justine, and against his better judgment, he meets her at the bar, and they sleep together. The next morning, after Justine drops him off, Paul drives home only to find Donna there, back earlier than expected. She notices his state immediately, and it doesn't take her long to figure out that he cheated. At the station, Ed's sharp stare says more than words. Outside, Paul spots Justine loitering nearby. He yells after her, frustration boiling over.
then decides to follow him, this time disconnecting his dash cam. The perspective shifts to James.
James is a homeless, drug-addict teenager. He survives by stealing and pawning whatever he can for a few dollars. On the day Paul cuffed him, James had been trying to break into a locked house. Now, wandering through town in the pouring rain, James stumbles upon a large house which turns out to be Alex's. He notices newspapers taped over the windows, but he shrugs it off and climbs inside through a window. Inside, the house is pitch black. James gropes around, stuffing valuables into a pillowcase. Passing through the living room, he mutters an apology when he sees Alex's parents seated on the couch, motionless, catatonic. They don't react, so he keeps going. He heads toward a door leading to the basement. There, in the dim light, he finds several children standing frozen. Panic surges through him. He tries to flee, but behind him, Alex's parents rise suddenly and give chase. James barely manages to scramble out of the house alive. Shaken, he heads to a pawn shop, sells off what he grabbed, and only then he notices a missing children flyer taped to the wall. Heart pounding, James calls the police and claims he knows where the missing children are. They tell him to come into the station. Outside the station, James notices Paul and runs into the forest. In the distance, he sees a strange woman waving at him. Spooked, he hides in his tent, clutching a used needle like a weapon. When Paul opens the tent flap, James mistakes him for the woman and stabs his face. Paul draws his gun in fury, but James begs for his life, claiming he knows where the missing children are. He guides Paul back to Alex's house. James watches nervously as Paul rings the bell. Someone opens the door. Night falls, but Paul doesn't come out. Then, suddenly, the door creaks open. Paul emerges, furious, dragging James inside with him. The perspective shifts again, this time to Marcus. Marcus is out shopping with his husband Terry when he gets a call from Justine. She explains her unease about Alex's house, especially the newspapers covering the windows, and asks Marcus to conduct a welfare check. To reassure her, he agrees to contact Alex's parents and arrange a meeting at the school. The next day, Marcus waits in his office for Alex's parents, but a woman in excessive makeup enters and introduces herself as Gladys, Alex's aunt. Marcus apologizes, explaining he needs to speak directly to Alex's legal guardian. Gladys interrupts, saying they're unwell, which is why she has moved in to take care of them. Marcus explains that a welfare concern was filed and insists he needs to speak with Alex's parents directly. Gladys asks who made the complaint. Marcus answers that it was anonymous. He warns that if he can't speak to Alex's parents by Monday morning, he will have to call the authorities. The next day, Marcus is enjoying a quiet breakfast with his partner when a knock sounds at the door. It's Gladys. She apologizes for disturbing him on a Saturday and explains she missed her bus, asking if she could rest for a while. Marcus doesn't understand why she would come to his house, but Terry welcomes her in. Inside, Gladys asks for a bowl of water. Then she asks Marcus if he has contacted the authorities about Alex. When he replies no, he notices Gladys tying his ribbon to a stick. Without warning, she presses the sharp edge of the stick into her own palm. Panicked, Marcus rushes to hand her a rag for her wound, but Gladys suddenly snips a lock of his hair. She ties his hair to the stick and rings a bell, then snaps the stick in half. Instantly, Marcus's body jerks, his movements no longer his own. He turns on Terry, killing him in a violent trance. When it is over, Gladys dips the stick into the bowl of water, which brings Marcus under control. From her bag, she takes another lock of hair, Justine's. She ties it to the stick and snaps it. Marcus runs towards Justine, and after shoving Archer off, he enters the store and chases after her, but Archer intervenes, wrestling Marcus down long enough for Justine to escape. She dashes outside, jumps into her car, and speeds away. Archer follows them in his car, but an oncoming car strikes Marcus, killing him on the spot. Later, after a hospital check, Archer finds Justine waiting for him outside. She thanks him, shaken but relieved. Justine wonders aloud that she has never seen anything like Marcus's behavior before, but Archer says he has. He shows her his findings. The children, including Matthew and Bailey, all ran in the exact same posture, in straight lines, as if they were weaponized, programmed to attack like Marcus. Archer points out the intersection, saying this is the line that Matthew and Bailey ran, but he admits he doesn't know what it means. Justine looks closer and realizes the spot is the home of Alex Lilly. Now the perspective shifts to Alex. Alex is a bright boy, but he often gets bullied by his classmates. The only comfort he finds is in the love of his parents. One evening, his father reminds him that his mother's sister, Gladys, will be arriving. Alex protests openly, saying he doesn't like her. His father insists it will make his mother happy, and besides, Gladys is very sick. That afternoon, his mother asks about his day at school and reminds him to clean his room before his aunt arrives. The next morning, Alex wakes to the sound of his parents arguing. His father mutters that they barely knows Gladys, having last seen her at their wedding 15 years ago. Later, after brushing his teeth, Alex peeks into Gladys's room and sees her lying in bed, weak and frail.
On the way to school, Alex asks his father how long Gladys will be staying. His father answers vaguely, not long, since her health isn't improving. At school, Matthew throws a pencil at Alex. Justine reprimands him and sends him out of class. After school, Alex waits a long time for his father to pick him up, but he never arrives. Eventually, he walks home. The house feels eerily silent. His parents sit at the table, murmuring incoherently. Then Gladys, looking healthier, greets him with a smile. When Alex asks what's wrong with his parents, she reassures him nothing is wrong. Gladys's voice sharpens. She orders him upstairs and tells him he will have no dinner tonight. The following morning, Alex comes downstairs, and Gladys asks him to take a seat. She warns him never to speak of his parents' condition or of her existence at the school. Then, before his eyes, she smears her blood on her stick and ties his parents' hair and snaps it. Immediately, his parents, vacant-eyed, stab themselves with a fork. Alex cries, begging her to stop, and at last she relents. Alex goes to school, silent about everything. After class, he returns home and hesitates outside Gladys's door. She calls out, instructing him to feed his parents some soup. He obeys, and it becomes his daily routine after school. One night, Alex slips into Gladys's room. She looks frail again, her skin pale and aged. Concerned, he asks, "What would make you feel better?" Gladys sighs and says, "I thought your parents would make me feel better, but they haven't." Then she looks at him and whispers, "You could help me." Alex hesitates and asks, "How?" She tells him to bring an object from each of his classmates. Though the request unsettles him, he asks if she will leave once she recovers. Gladys looks hurt by the question, but lies, assuring him she will. The next day, while the others play basketball, Alex sneaks into the classroom and steals his classmates' name tags. Justine catches him on his way out and gently asks if he's all right, since he's been unusually quiet lately. Alex lies, saying he's fine. She reminds him that he can always talk to her if he wants. That evening, Alex delivers the stolen tags to Gladys. Later, he spies on her performing a strange ritual with them.
Then she shakes her bell. To Alex's horror, his classmates begin arriving at his house in a trance. The next morning, Alex sits at his desk in an empty classroom when his teacher walks in. Then Gladys begins preparing Alex's father for interviews. That afternoon, she warns Alex that the police will come searching the house and orders him to help clean. To avoid suspicion, she sends the children into the forest temporarily. Detectives arrive later, but Alex says nothing. By now, he has been forced to care for the other children as well as his parents. One afternoon, Alex notices a police cruiser parked outside his house. He enters inside to find an officer, but Gladys appears and calmly tells Alex to pack his things, saying they are leaving tomorrow. She also warns him, don't step over the salt. That evening, Alex peeks through the window and sees a car parked outside. Inside the car, Justine and Archer are planning their next move, when Paul steps outside, then go back into the house. Both of them decide to go inside. Alarmed, Alex grabs his shoes, determined to warn Justine and Archer of the danger. They both enter the house and Justine sees Paul. As Justine tries to get to him, she crosses the salt line without realizing it. Immediately, Paul lunges at her, while James charges at Archer. Archer manages to subdue James, but Justine is forced to run for her life. Alex, desperate to reach Gladys's room, also crosses the salt line. His parents instantly spring at him, forcing him to flee and barricade himself in Gladys's room. Justine fends off Paul with various objects, but he keeps coming. Meanwhile, Archer is knocked down into the basement, while Justine seizes his gun and shoots Paul, killing him. She descends into the basement and takes down James as well. Archer calls out for his son. At the same time, Alex finds his aunt's stick. He smears his own blood on it, then ties a strand of Gladys's hair to it. Meanwhile, Gladys makes Archer choke Justine. Just as Justine is about to faint, Alex snaps the stick in two. The children turn on Gladys, chasing her through the streets. They swarm her relentlessly until she is torn apart. After Gladys's death, everyone under her spell breaks free. Archer stumbles outside, frantic to find his son. Justine checks on Alex, who is trembling but alive. His parents, however, never recover from their state and are committed to an institution. Alex is eventually placed with a kind relative. In time, some of the children begin to recover, slowly regaining their voices, and that is how the movie ends.